the journalist panel, and with me I have Amanda Rondone, Jenny Thompson, and another Jenny Proudfoot. And these amazing women have either been journalists themselves or are currently journalists or have been in publishing and media. And I'm going to let them tell you a little bit about themselves. So who would like to go first?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Rondone. I am a fashion, culture, and social justice writer and editor based here in London, and I write for a variety of different publications. I write for British Vogue, Refinery 29 in the US and the UK, Wall Street Journal Magazine, different Vogues, and Arabia is one that I cover more politics and especially Muslim women as the sort of political movements that are happening in the United States, where Muslim women have really been at the fore, which is really exciting. And a lot of fashion too. And sometimes fashion, culture, social justice are one and the same in a story, sometimes not as much. And it's kind of just really great as a freelancer to be able to explore those things with different publications.
Thank you. And Jenny?
My name's Jenny Thompson. I own my own marketing, PR, and communications business now, which I also set up in the pandemic, like some of our previous panelists. Prior to that, I worked for 26 years in regional media for two of the largest newspaper media corporations, where I learnt my craft, really. I was an ad director by the age of 30 after leaving university. So I worked with editors as part of a senior leadership team, newspaper editors, which back in the day were very daunting people to work with, to be honest. I made the switch into magazine publishing, though, 12 years ago when I had my little boy, still within the newspaper industry. But I was tasked with setting up some affluent regional lifestyle targeted magazines, which was great because I could step out of the commercial world of generating advertising money all the time and move over into working with journalists and editors and setting the scene for editorial content, as well as being responsible for the bottom line profit. So that's my experience really in media.
Thank you. And Jenny?
Hi, I'm Jenny Proudfoot. I'm features editor at Marie Claire magazine. I've been there for 5 years and overseen our transition to be a digital first company. I oversee news, all things lifestyle, all things entertainment, careers, bit of fashion, bit of beauty. And on the side, I also do some writing for Women of the City magazine.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. And what I'd like to know actually from you all, and I think this would be such an interesting question, given what you all do, and it's very different, especially for yourself, Jenny. I want to ask, how has publishing changed in the last 19 months? And I guess you're not directly there anymore, but even I guess you could comment on that in retrospect from when you were back there to now. So
yeah. I think publishing, over the last 26 years, and let's take it, when I first started, we had no mobile phones and there was no internet, believe that or not, for some of you in the audience, when I first started in media. So 1995. And from then, structurally, publishing started to change because traditional ad revenue streams such as jobs, motors, those platforms back in the day where you only went to one source of media, suddenly started moving that advertising spend online. I think from the pandemic's perspective, the move to digital media has accelerated what had already, was a multi-million-pound spend on digital. And I think in 2020, media spend on digital was up 5% despite the pandemic. Okay, so digital is the clear winner, if you like. And I think for businesses and startups and brands, the challenge that there is with that is, okay, how do I cut my business, my brand across that noise that's in a very, very busy marketplace? And the consumer is the person that's in control, really, these days in publishing. Yes. Back in the day, you only went to a certain number of places or magazines to get your content. But now, let's look at Instagram, we all have our own personal publishing stream every single morning before we even get out of bed. Okay, so if you think of it like that, publishing is going through dramatic change, I think. And I think that anybody who's in the publishing game at the moment, and it's great to, your digital first strategy has been a huge transition, but one that will only continue, I think, to accelerate as more people spend time on mobile.
Absolutely. And Jenny?
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said. That would be my exact same answer. And I really feel like the pandemic has made everyone pivot, and even publications that previously didn't have much of a digital presence, everyone just raised their game, because it was a time, wasn't it, where everyone was stuck in their homes, everyone was in need of entertainment, inspiration, a sense of community. And so I feel like publications just had to raise the bar and meet them there. And I think it's changed it forever. Wouldn't you agree?
I think so. I think community, you're saying community, that's one of the key things, isn't it? We have our own personal community on our device, as we say, via Instagram every morning, but then you're also searching for those connections now that maybe you reevaluated during the pandemic, or you had more time to think about. So community is a really big thing.
It's funny that community keeps popping up, isn't it? And Amanda?
It's interesting. I agree. I think digital first has been a model that's been adopted for the past decade, really. And yes, that's been accelerated. But I also think it's created a very loud and chaotic landscape when it comes to content. And I think that because of that, there is people want better information. They want better written stories that are well sourced, that elevate voices that have been so long forgotten and just lost and are still lost in this digital media landscape that is really great because it's fast and it's connected and everyone has access to it, and that's all really good. But I also think that it's very crowded, and that there is this push for people wanting to understand the sources of what they're reading, where it's coming from, who that journalist spoke to, and I think that that's changing the game too. So for a writer like me, there are some very clear market trend-driven stories. I'm sure you know this from Maria Claire when it comes to shopping. That's it's really cool to be online and to be doing that online, because you could actually see what your audience is responding to, right? So if you're doing a roundup of trends, shoe trends, and you see what your audience is engaging with in terms of like what they're clicking on and shopping, and so then you can actually use that to tailor your content to really be like you said, the consumers have a lot more power and control in that sense, because you're kind of reacting to one another and seeing what's working, what isn't. But at the same time, I've written longer stories either online or in print that have resonated with readers who are looking to better understand an issue, who want to hear voices that are not mine. It's really just a vehicle through which those voices are heard. And I think the case for both could be made. And I personally, and I've seen this with a lot of journalists, launched a newsletter. And I think that that's a really interesting new space that writers are going into, because I know for me, my motivation for doing it is just because I have full ownership over that voice and those stories that I'm telling. I launched it in partnership with 2 other freelance writers, and there's no greater editorial mission that I am part of where I might have to change a story or tweak it or have it be read in a certain voice. And so I'm seeing that shift to newsletters a lot, and I think the reasons are similar. And I think that that's exciting. And then, so that's something that's being delivered to an inbox by somebody who's asking for it versus just this constant world of stories all the time. So I think it's interesting. I don't think it's as simple as digital is it. I think it's, I think there's audiences that are asking for more, and there's ways that you could respond to it digitally. There's ways that you could respond to it via email, via social, and it's cool to see where that's going. But what's for sure is people want more authenticity. They want real stories that are diverse and representative of their communities, and that they are able to make those demands really clear. And as a journalist, it's exciting to to meet that call.
Absolutely. Sorry, Jenny, I don't mean
That's
to interrupt there. And it's funny because you all pretty much kind of answered the questions that I wanted to ask. But what I wanted to actually go into what you were just saying about in terms of content and what they want to see. And I want to know more of what you think that readers are now looking for in terms of content, albeit online, digitally, or in print. What do you think they're looking for? And I think you mentioned something very important there, and they're looking for more meaningful stories and things like that. And I think even on the panels earlier, our panelists were saying the same thing. People are looking for more. They want to know who a person is, especially the ones that you're writing about, and they want to know the journalist even as well. And journalists have now even become an influencer in their own right. They're influencing, people are following them, people want to know what they're doing, people actually listen to what they have to say. So what are some of the, what is this content that you think readers now want to see and are paying attention to more of?
Is that for me?
Well, you can continue what you're saying.
I think, so are you guys mostly Gen Z in here, or what are we dealing with? Because Gen Z, I'm still trying to figure out, because well, what does Gen Z want? And that's a question that as storytellers we're asking ourselves, but definitely people in the fashion world are asking. And I write a lot about sustainability, to a point where sometimes I think that conflicts with some of the shopping coverage that I do, which is, something I'm working on in terms of, how do I want to approach this in terms of my values, but also as somebody who's commissioned to write certain things. But sustainability is really important to me in the fashion space, because it's not just an environmental issue, it's a feminist issue, it's a racial justice issue. And I really think that there's power in I think it could be really overwhelming, and the onus is unfairly put on consumers to drive change when, yes, our individual choices are important, but there's also the question of government regulation and why is it even possible for these, the global south labor to be exploited in the way that it is. So I don't think it's that simple as just we need to change how we shop, but I like the power in being able to inform and speak to sustainability experts, designers who are putting forth really good business models that are more sustainable. And I see that there's such an interest in that, especially among Gen Z who care about the planet. This is their planet that they're inheriting from, I'm from the millennial generation and boomers and everyone before us. So there's that interest, but then at the same time, Boohoo has consistently had better and better sales quarter after quarter. And a lot of that is Gen Z. I think that there's a role of social media in that. So I am, in terms of, sustainability in the environment in fashion, I see such an interest in that space. But I'm also confused because the behaviors, and even when I see what people are shopping and what they're responding to in terms of products that they're buying. Yeah. And so I'm really committed to figuring that out. And it's an area that I'm really interested in. I think in the wake of George Floyd's death in 2020, there was a lot more interest or just an awareness of how magazines have failed to really represent their reader. They're kind of only speaking to one certain kind of reader. And I think that there's across the board interest in people either seeing themselves or wanting to read stories from perspectives that are not their own. And I found a great space to be writing about those things, whether it's in fashion or other issues. And I think that that's important. And I'm excited to see that interest is there, because as a journalist, it's my responsibility to be a better storyteller. So
Absolutely.
I agree. I think that, as you say, I think diversity is what people want to see. I think that the voice, the power that we're saying that consumers have as reader, be it digitally or even a print magazine, is that they want to see people like them. They don't want to see
Absolutely.
somebody who they can't connect with. At the end of the day, a good magazine knows its audience inside out and should be able to, connect with that audience and provide content that they devour and they want more of and they want more of. And the magazine model, the paid for magazine model is testament to that in itself with it. But I think that authenticity, doesn't matter what medium it's in, it just has to be authentic. And I think the pandemic especially has put pause on everybody's life that normally only critical illness would do, really. But we've all shared the same experience, but not shared that, as the saying goes, exactly the same experience. But it's given people time to connect and think back about what's really important to them.
Yeah.
And that's what they want to read about.
Right.
And digital is so busy and so fragmented and everything else, which is why I think that print media still has a position. But will it have a position for my 12-year-old son, who really, has never watched a scheduled program in his life since he was 4 years old? He demands his content where he wants it, when he wants it, and how he wants it, and on which device he wants it. So, to me, that I don't have the answers for, but, definitely authenticity for me.
Amazing. And Jenny?
I completely agree as well. Magazines are always going to be a place for readers to come to be entertained and empowered and inspired and informed. It will always be a safe space for that. But now more than ever, readers, like you said, Gen Z or millennials, they want to be mobilized, I find. They want content that mobilizes them. They're socially active, they're politically engaged, they're eco-conscious. They want to know, what's the most sustainable footwear to wear. They want to know how to help women in Afghanistan. They want to know what marches they should be going on, what petitions they should be signing. And more than ever, they want to be active and mobilized. They go to that for their content.
I love that. And I mean, I feel like they've already answered it. But would you say that the future is digital, print, or both?
Yeah. The way it's going now, digital, but I hope both. I love magazines. I love newspapers. The problem is, I think not enough people are buying them. And I'm not sure if you'll remember when Look magazine closed, but they, in their last issue, they wrote a call to action where they said when they announced they were closing, lots of people came forward and said, oh no, I'm a huge fan of Look. I love Look. I haven't bought it for a few years, but I love it. And they were like, okay, well, if you have bought it, then we might still be here. And they said, if there's a magazine you love, support it, buy it, spread the word. And so I think it's really up to readers whether print is in the future, but I hope so.
Thank you. Jenny?
Yeah, I mean, I love magazines as well. And I think for my generation and probably a little bit younger than me, I think that tactile time, that, me alone time that you have with a magazine that you can get really close to and get involved in and lost in is going to be there. But I think that magazines have to think really far forward in terms of what their digital proposition looks like. I'm not sure at the moment that I think it's open field, I would say, at the minute for how that's going to look. I don't think anybody knows, but I think being at the forefront of technology and getting to know that younger audience in advance is probably what a lot of magazines need to do. So I think it's both, but I really do agree with you in terms of being fragmented and crowded, which is what gives it such challenges for business, I think, because it's where do you start really? How do you cut through everything out there?
Absolutely. And Samantha?
So I think the challenge for digital media, and I really entered this space in 2014, 2015. So it was really when, the magazines that I had interned at in New York, if nobody could tell from my accent, I'm not British. I am from New York, and I worked as a journalist there and also in France and also here, sort of in this moment where the landscape has been so turbulent and volatile. And I think there's still this question of how do we monetize digital media in a way that is sustainable, in a way that journalists can be paid and employees can be taken care of and readers could get the content that they're looking for. And it hasn't been figured out. I mean, there's kind of always these shifts of well, you can make video, that you can make money this way, right? And it was video for a while. And so there was massive layoffs at some digital media companies and all this money and focus put towards video. And then Facebook changed its algorithm. And then it was back to editorial and goodbye to the video people. So, and it is a very turbulent industry to be in for that reason, and very tough. And I would definitely say that is something to be incredibly aware of and understanding of if you want to enter this industry. And then now what I'm seeing a lot of is the transparent use of affiliate links, which you might know from influencers. Like if they post something and you buy it, they might make a commission. That model for a number of years now has been a strategy worked into digital media companies. Jenny, I'm sure you probably, from Marie Claire, and you'll see, you might not even notice it, but there should be disclaimers on the articles that you're reading that publication will likely be making money off of something if you click out and buy it. So I've sort of had a front seat to that change from an editor who I've been working with at Refinery in the US, and also expanding that globally and kind of being here in the UK almost like an editorial bridge, just helping out and understanding that strategy and watching it grow and watching digital companies invest in it. So I think that that's really like a pretty clear way that revenue is being made now. But again, that could change. And so I think that digital is a bit too volatile to replace print entirely when it comes to, for publishers to really be able to make money, because they still don't know how to do it unless people want to pay for their content. And maybe that will change. But what I think the pandemic has done, it's encouraged us to slow down in a lot of different ways. Obviously, being in front of screens and our phones and stuff might not be the case for how we consume content, but people are slowing down their how they produce fashion, what they design, and consumers are more conscious of slowing down their own habits. And we're seeing that across the board. And I think the way people have been overwhelmed by the deluge of content that they get on all of their devices all of the time, and this doom scrolling and getting just really lost into this sort of online world of content, maybe people will slow down. I mean, I know I like consuming my content on Sunday mornings when the newspaper comes, and I my husband takes half and I take half, and then we swap. And it's one of my favorite rituals, and one of the ways that I read that I feel like I engage with stories and stick with it. I mean, there was a profile on Lily Cole and about her book, and then I went out and I bought it, and then I've been integrating stuff I've been learning from that book into some guest lectures I've been doing. Like it seems to stick more, and I like that slower engagement. So print is slower. You plan, if you're working as a journalist for something in print, you're writing something months in advance, and probably have more time to dive deeper into it, depending on what the story is and who you're writing it for. Maybe we'll slow down too. Like maybe we'll all just get so I mean, we're all overwhelmed with tech anyway. Everyone's like doing a cleanse, or everyone talks about it, but we're not really changing it. But maybe changing it could be where there's more of a balance between what you're looking at online and what you're reading online, and then what you're reading in print. But you have to pay for your content in order for any of it, I think, to really stick around. So that's the challenge. And I guess we'll see what people are willing to pay for.
Well, thank you all. This has been a very fun panel, very, very insightful. And up next, we have social media, content creation, and influencing. Join us.